So what are we talking about here today? We're talking about digital transformation and the fact that it's not just a necessity, but it's actually an essential, especially when we see exponential growth in technology. But also we need to understand how we leverage the digital ecosystem and how it becomes crucial to our daily existence. Now for Uganda, let's look in terms of, I want us to go back and look at policy. When you're building your startups, one of the questions is, where is the market? Right? Now, for the digital roadmap that the government has gracefully put together with the help of UNDP, it's telling us where the market is. But I want us to go back and look at where is the market from a concept of IT policy and regulations. So over the last 10 years, there's been a whole lot of IT policy and regulation. And our unfortunate culture, when we see policy coming in, we see it as something pushing us, something against what we're doing. It's a regulation, but it's a minefield of opportunities. And that's what I want to start with in terms of expressing how do we look at the opportunities within the policy. And when you start understanding that, you also start understanding our frustration when we're trying to deal with government. Government creates policy. We don't innovate around that policy. We get frustrated when we have to wait 6 months for a national ID. Right? Imagine if we had innovated around the opportunities of the national ID, what could we do? So let me just start with the Data Protection and Privacy Act. What could we do as a business? Right? Software services designed to help businesses comply with data protection. There's a growing need of privacy. Do we have any privacy experts around? How can we do? And training, data protection training. How much work is being done around that? And then when you move on to, let's say, the Computer Misuse Act, cybersecurity firms, IT forensic services, again, cybersecurity training, all of those are opportunities around this digitization conversation. But if I ask ourselves within our ecosystems as startups, how much or how many entities do we have in those spaces at the moment? I'll go down. I actually found 11 acts, ICT related, over the last 10 years. Then there's the Electronic Transactions Act. What does that mean in terms of contract, digital contracts? Do we have any entities doing that? Opportunities around digital contract services. Payment gateways. We've seen a number of payment gateways, but are they enough? Are they actually serving the opportunities and the needs of the market? And when I say the needs of the market, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about 45 million people and growing. I'm talking about the youngest economy in terms of population on the continent, right? But I'm also talking about a country that has probably the most diverse cultures. Not only our internal cultures, but also we're the most open country when it comes to refugees. So we literally, I think we are the United Nations of Africa, first and foremost. But then you go beyond. So all of those are opportunities. If you're looking at payment gateways, repatriation of funds, there's huge opportunities in that space. What are we doing? Legal tech solutions. How many do we have? This morning somebody sent me something interesting from legalaIafrica.com. Just do www.legaliafrica.com and see what you can do. It's amazing. You can actually register a business. You can do a lot. And it's a Ugandan entity. So somehow somebody read my mind and tried to mention that. Electronic Signatures Act. Do we have any business around that space? Do we have any startups around that space? Remember, we're going digital, right? So what can we do in that particular space? Digital signature solutions, do we have any? Document management systems, integrated electronic signatures, are we doing that? Opportunities in the startup ecosystem in a digital Uganda. when we look at the Press and Journalists Act 2000, where opened avenues for, again, digital media platforms. We've seen a few, but we've not seen really enough. We've not seen focused platforms that are actually focusing in particular areas. Media monitoring services, how many do we have in the country? How many radio stations are actually running? And how many media monitoring solutions do we have, right? When you look at our musicians, there's a conversation on copyright, right? It is very easy nowadays to actually be able to create audio signatures, right? And how many people, what solutions do we have that could offer to an artist that your song was played 5 times on Radio 1? Right. All of those are absolutely amazing opportunities in terms of when you start thinking around innovation and a digital Uganda. Content creation, yes, we're creating content, but is it intentional? Is it business? How fast do we create content? We know that content actually expires very quickly. How do we monetize that, and how do you make it sustainable? There is the Anti-Terrorism Act. When we look at it, we think it's for the police. But from an innovation point of view, there's communication security options. How do you prevent unauthorized interception? Everybody talks about somebody's listening to your phone calls, right? What solutions are we making available locally? Is there anybody in terms of compliance consulting? We all have issues when the bank tells you you've deposited 10 million shillings, where did it come from? And we're all working around the same traditional challenges. Where are we on that? The National ICT Policy, again, it's an interesting policy, but amazing consulting services around that. Amazing services for government portals. And government portals are only being done by government because we have not come up and said we can do it. We have not shown better alternative solutions. But imagine you build a government portal which serves 5 million Ugandans, and at every interaction you get paid 500 shillings, right? Let's look at the money there, right? So I always look at the money. So if you think about it, there are a whole lot of different opportunities. The Access to Information Act, again, business opportunities in terms of access platforms. Public access information, again, about the government information. Again, it's chargeable, and you're earning money out of it. So what we're trying to actually talk about today is the framework is in place. What is your total addressable market that you put in your slide deck? A sample of 45 million people, right? You've got the sample, you know the users. When we look at the PDM, how many people are developing anything around the PDM today? Not many. Again, we don't look at it. But I will assure you that if you go online and look at any World Bank project today, which is being funded in Uganda, it does have a PDM component. So the message to us in the room, as innovators, startups, start looking there. There are a lot of opportunities there. And the users is a sample of 45 million, right? It's very easy to justify that on a deck, right? I know when we talk, we always talk about our ability to do startup decks. So these are the other acts I've spoken about. And so if anybody is asking, has this ecosystem grown? You have 11 government acts, policies that are in place that have been enacted over the last few years. And the veterans in the room are glad that we were part of those conversations to see where we are. So what have we then done? Some of the work we've been doing as NFT Mawazo. NFT Mawazo is a startup that we built internally as part of NFT Consult, and we use it to help us understand certain ecosystems and how we build certain solutions before they become practical. So over the last 2 years, we worked on an interesting project with MasterCard, and that was a big focus on the bottom of the pyramid. How do you create opportunities at the bottom of the pyramid? And those opportunities, we focus at the bottom of the pyramid because 60% of our population exists at the bottom of the pyramid. But also, a lot of money that moves around the country moves at the bottom of the pyramid. It does not stay in the same pockets, but it moves faster at the bottom of the pyramid, right? And how do we classify this 60%? The 60% says that up to 10% of our population can spend 150,000 shillings any day, a number of days with comfort. Between 30% are able to spend 5,000 to 150 any day with comfort. 60% of the population spends between 5,000 to 0 every day. But that 60% of the population is key to us being to sit here in this room. If that 60% of the population stopped spending, we would not be able to live comfortably, right? So our future comfort is based on that 60% spending more. When it spends and earns more, we are able to spend and earn more. So we spent some time looking at this, and we transitioned into ecosystems. We always talk about ecosystems. And one of the challenges we do when we talk about ecosystems, we look at the ecosystem on its own. The ecosystem is always part of another ecosystem, and it keeps on unpacking. Our focus usually is on, I'm not sure we have a pointer, we don't. Our focus usually is on the big problem. But when you fix the big problem, it generates another problem, and continuously generating other smaller problems until you can fix the bottom of the problem, then you can grow. Otherwise, we tend to fix the big problem and stop there. And when you're able to fix the big problem without the smaller problems, you have a challenge. For example, we're talking about, and I've seen us arguing to government, remove taxes on mobile phones, drop prices on mobile phones, make the internet cheaper. That's because we fixed the big problem and we did not look at how we fix the smaller problems. The smaller problem should be, we should be able to get smaller, cheap phones, specific phones for specific roles, but we can't get them because we're based on buying them from China, but now they're cheaper. How many of us are thinking of assembling small phones in this country? How many of you are thinking around that space? How many of us are thinking about creating solutions that are specific to a problem? So my conversation is around that we need to think how we build that, which has brought us to what we now talk about, what the Mawazo model is, what I call the Mawazo model, is you think about any ecosystem. That ecosystem has these six specific items. You need to look at energy. You need to look at infrastructure. You need to look at what I call context-aware finance. Context-aware finance means that if I'm trying to help a villager in, not a village, let's say somebody in Chikoni, downtown, somebody who's never had a bank account, right? When I take him to a bank, I know we have Tony from Stanbic here, so let me talk about Stanbic. When that person goes to that entity, they will give them a list of what they need to open a bank account, right? And half of those people don't have that, right? They absolutely, so the 60% I talked about are probably not even able to open a bank account, right? So that's why we talk about context-aware finance. We need now to redesign those financial solutions around the context. What does that mean for innovators? We need to understand what the question is in the policy for opening a bank account, and then how do we create digital solutions to fix that, to eliminate that friction. That's when we talk about context-aware. But this actually means that in any ecosystem we're talking about, now the middle space aggregation is where the platforms sit. If you're doing an e-commerce platform, it sits at the aggregation space. But for that to happen, if it's an e-commerce platform, you need delivery to happen. How is delivery going to happen? Delivery is going to happen because you can have a vehicle that is going to move from X to Y. It needs fuel. Does it fit into the ecosystem from the cost point of view? How is the financing for that ecosystem works? How many of us have gone to online food platform to order food and then they tell you that that restaurant is no longer serving? For one reason or another, then the restaurant is not able to provide food. We've all had that issue, right? That's because somehow, somewhere, the restaurant and the platform have failed to agree on something. And half the time is how the restaurant gets paid, right? Because the platform is telling you, I'll pay you every week, but you're on a hand-to-mouth ecosystem. So that until somebody comes in and understands how those platforms operate, right, and how the restaurant operates, that business is not going to grow, right, because the finance is no longer context aware. The bottom side is really where consumption happens. At the bottom side, we unpack the retail ecosystem, we unpack the transport, and then the last mile is where consumption happens. So how do we then take this conversation and look at, how do we take this conversation and understand, again, AI did an amazing job. A few years from now, it will be able to do exactly. So what I'm trying to show you here, again, I explained my thought process, and this is what they did. So I didn't have to go to anybody to do my graphics for me. But I wanted us to look at the different pillars. The different pillars in the digital roadmap and understand, when we look at the digital services, the upstream is we're developing platforms for e-government, e-health, and more. That is what is happening. Now, there's infrastructure at the top. But how does that aggregate, right? Which is where the midstream conversation comes in, right? And then the downstream is, once you have that platform, how does it get consumed? Now remember, if it's an e-platform, it will get consumed via an electronic device, right? Remember what I told you about different ecosystems building and creating other opportunities down the chain. Now there's an opportunity now for the device ecosystem to happen. What I find that the challenge is we have fallen into an interesting market where we're trying to copy and paste Amazon into Uganda. It won't happen. We have to specifically create an Amazon from the ground up, right? And we're struggling with that. And most of the platforms currently in the market are struggling with that. And I can go on record, if you look at any of the platforms, I won't mention the names, and understand their struggles, it's because the copy and paste mentality. And the message here is we need to unpack, contextualize our innovations into our environment and grow. We have 45 million people, addressable market. So feel brave enough to contextualize for those 45 million people as opposed to a carbon copy. If you look at pillar 3, cybersecurity, digital services, again, on pillar 3, the opportunities around. And again, the reason I started with the different acts is to show that the digital roadmap does not stand on its own. It's part of the framework that has been there before. And what the digital roadmap is supposed to do is to help bring a lot of those policies to life and create value for the economy. Pillar 4 is digital skills. Again, you can break it down to upstream, midstream, and downstream. And you can also break it down into those different levels I've told you about. Because there's digital skills at the village level. There's digital skills at the health level. Digital skills at the farmer level, right? All of those are unpacked around that value chain, right? So you don't say we've done digital skilling and you stop. You're always unpacking it, because the message I'm going to give to a farmer in the village on digital skills is not the message I will give to the person up in the value chain. And that conversation keeps on changing as you move around. I find Pillar 5 in the roadmap a little bit out of place. And that's just my opinion. Because really, it's what we do, right? It's what we do. So I don't see how you separate it in there, but I think the framers of this understood it better. But Pillar 5 really overlays for us as private sector and innovators. Pillar 5 overlays how we actually build this particular process. So in closing, the model encapsulates what we call our vision of a digital Uganda in terms of transforming legislative frameworks into concrete economic value. It's about meticulous execution at each layer of our digital ecosystem, ensuring that every opportunity is optimized and its fullest potential. By adoption, in terms of the model, we see transition from ideation to action, from potential to profit, in terms of once you're ideating, as you're breaking it down, you can see the potential and you can actually visualize the profit. And we believe that it's through this lens that we will not only witness, but also enact the digital transformation of Uganda, ensuring that the future we envision is not a distant dream, but an imminent reality. For us to embrace how we intentionally approach value out of the digital framework, I think is going to be key. Not only do I think, I know and I believe is going to be key in terms of seeing this ecosystem grow, in terms of seeing 5 years from now, for us talking about 200 startups delivering. Because the challenges we have in this ecosystem are duplicated in every African country. If you're looking at growth, the challenges are duplicated. But if you're intentional, and the reason I believe the framework is important, the framework enables you to scale because you've actually managed to break the different components up. We were having an earlier conversation saying that Amazon at one time started doing most things, but now doesn't, because it now has different ecosystems with different players and different businesses within those ecosystems. And that is where now we need to intentionally build our digital vision and our entrepreneurial vision in Uganda. With that, I want to thank you so much, and I hope we can actually understand this conversation. Thank you so much. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Badru. Yeah, you can hear me. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Badru. And as you were speaking, I think you started with the policy. And to me, again, just being an entrepreneur, a lot of times you hear things like policy, and you feel very detached from them, right? Because as a business owner, you're really thinking about your product, selling it, and it's really easy to kind of feel like, I don't know how this relates to me. And I like that you just helped us kind of repurpose that in our minds and see opportunities, a lot of business ideas that popped up through that. But without further ado, I'm going to call, my eyes are dead. Yeah, Catherine, to take us through her next panel that is going to break down further some of these opportunities, but also truthfully, the challenges. While it looks really rosy, I think there's still so many bottlenecks around this space. So, Catherine.
I'll say Jane, right? Allow me. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. All right, great. So it's a good morning, and I need to thank Pedro for the keynote speech, because I think it has brought us into a good space for us to appreciate why we are here this morning, to appreciate what we need to be thinking about as we make consideration for the future of Ugandan startups in the digital age. My name is Catherine Tulina Kafumbe. I happen to work with Safe Border, and Safe Border is, I hope we know, a leader of innovation and digitization, and the innovation spaces around transportation. So we do think about how do we make sure we solve a problem in terms of transportation, research, starting with border and then into cars. So I'm very excited to be here because the conversation is very relevant. So as per the conversation, we understand that there are lots of opportunities that come with digitization. And we need to appreciate what collaboration efforts exist. But we know that even with the opportunities will be challenges. So it's important that we appreciate those challenges, but also understand how do we navigate these challenges. And that's the reason for this morning. And I'm excited for my panelists this morning because they're just on point for the conversation at hand. And without further ado, allow me to introduce my panelists this morning to take the conversation forward. Arthur Mukembo, the Future Lab Studio Lead, Innovation Village. Please make your way up. A clap, please. Tony Otoa, Chief Executive, Stanbic Business Incubator. We have Grace Nachivala, Manager, Uganda Response Innovation Lab. I was going to say that if this panel had no lady, there's going to be a riot. Yes, so welcome, Grace. And of course, Badru Ntege, welcome back, founder, NFT Mawazo. Badru corrected, co-founder. Apparently, he will be in trouble if I just say founder. Okay, and then we have Enoch Naika, founder and CEO of Famunera. So the discussion on table this morning, as displayed, is what is the future of Ugandan startups in the digital age? Let's listen to the panelists. Let's understand what the future is, what they think about, how they've explored it, what are they learning as we go forward, and what can we do? And I would like to start our conversation with Enoch. I'll give you a second. I'd like to start our discussion with Enoch. Enoch, you recently announced the launch of the Dutch aggregate company during the Uganda-Netherlands Business Convention. Can you tell us about Famunera? What are your core products and service offerings that you have on table? And have you been able to leverage these products to attract international partnerships and clients?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank Uganda Innovation Week and all the partners for putting this together. Again, my name is Naika Julius. I serve at Famunera as the founder and CEO of the company. Famunera is simply a digital farm-to-market solution that's powering global food suppliers to build efficient supply chains with their farmers, or call them the suppliers, and also their end customers. We officially launched here in Uganda in 2016. We started as a B2C model, and we are directly serving the farmers from 2016 to 2022. 2023, Jan, we officially launched our B2B platform that's actually enabling the upstream from farm to the market. Among the challenges we faced between 2016 to 2022, as we are serving the farmers directly as a B2C model, we realized that it was going to take a lot of time for them to actually adapt to the technology we had built, much as we tried to understand them and be able to build even a USSD code platform. But there is something about this ecosystem, also the money gap that moves around the ecosystem. So we decided to find a way of serving them in a way that we can be able to serve them, but through another channel by having businesses like the food exporters, cooperatives, and farmer groups, be able to reach them, be able to provide them with the market linkages, and also be able to trickle down the money in the supply chain. So that way, we realize that it's our turning point. And so this year alone, we've been able to scale in the Netherlands and also in the United Arab Emirates. So among the challenges we faced, we've been able to face as we're taking on this global scale is finding those strategic partners that can actually guarantee you a platform where you get to be understood by the target people that you're looking up to serve. And so we've been able to have partners on board. For instance, UNCDF, we've done works with them in 2020. We've done some works with International Trade Center under NTF 4 and 5. We've also been able to work with USAID, TechnoServe. So these platforms have been, these people and organizations have been able to provide us a platform to actually be able to talk to those that would love to work with at the global scale. So that's how we've been able to do that. And of course, we wouldn't be able to do it alone because it's hard to show up in a room, first of all, as a Ugandan company, when you're going up to the global scale. So it's better that you have to set up yourself there, show your presence, and be able to show up in a room, whether investor room or any other meeting, as either a European company, because you're going to talk to a European entity, or you're going to talk to a Middle Eastern entity, show up as a UAE company. So basically, with these partners that we've been able to work with, have really been able to provide us that platform and be able to achieve that. Yeah.
Great. I think his story is just call to the fact that the opportunities exist. It's a Ugandan business. It's moved up to the Netherlands. Let's get to learn more. So, Badru, you have given us a very good preamble, a good breakdown on the digital transformation roadmap, brilliantly, just a few minutes ago. So we would like to hear from you. What are the low-hanging fruits that entrepreneurs, innovators need to be thinking about and targeting and take advantage of in this space?
Thank you. I think for me, the opportunity is whatever is within your ecosystem and your nearest space that you understand best. A lot of we tend to innovate a lot around Kampala. I had reference to, is it on? Sorry. So I talked about, I was saying we tend to innovate heavily around Kampala, around what's the niche thing, so you find the same apps doing the same thing. But if you really pay attention to the PDM, I always say what the PDM did, whether intentionally or unintentionally, it mapped the entire country, right? So they mapped the country, and then they were able to now look at what the whole concept is, creating an economy around the different community space at the lowest level. Now, innovating around that space for me is the lowest hanging fruit, because now what we're trying to do, especially now that since we're digitizing, is you're now able then to innovate, but also if you go into one ecosystem and innovate, we always talk about scale. So if you're innovating around Kampala, you're playing with 4 million at the most in terms of potential scale. But if you can actually go into a particular parish and perfect an innovation to a point, it means that you've got another 100 entities that you can scale to. So your potential for scale is multiplied 10 times over. So really the shortest answer is your lowest hanging fruit is what you can do today with what policy is enabling you to do. And that's why I focus the conversation on policy, but also spend time and understand the PDM. That's where the gold at the bottom of the pyramid is. So understand that from whatever ecosystem you're looking at, and there is an opportunity, because whatever is consumed in Kampala is consumed in another part of the country. So build from there. It's easy for you to build, fail, and learn, as opposed to trying to come and fight it in the city where everybody's fighting. That would be my lowest hanging fruit advice. Thank you.
What is PDM?
I like that you raised that question.
And it's a chorus answer required. PDM? Oh, okay. I needed to be sure that we can relate to the parish development model. Thank you so much, Badru. So I hope we understand. Let's be relevant. Policies are made for us, and they're meant to help us grow. So let's work with them. So Arthur, if you could speak to us about the different partnerships, if at all they exist, yeah, within the Future Lab studio, and then how do these partnerships benefit entrepreneurs, and how can they leverage these partnerships?
Sure. Awesome. Good morning, everyone. I think before jumping in, how many of us are existing entrepreneurs in the room? Show of hands. All right. How many are aspiring entrepreneurs? How many have failed before? Those are my favorite people in the room, any day. And don't worry, we're going to do better. So in terms of context there's a massive opportunity in turning hitherto non-consumers into consumers, as Badru has been mentioning. And models like PDM speak to that. I liked your statistic that you were sharing, Badru, earlier, around 60% of the population, 5,000 shillings and below in terms of opportunity space. For those in the room who've tried, who are trying, who are aspiring to make a difference in society, that's the opportunity space. The kinds of models that we leverage at Innovation Village are around first building context around what does that mean? How did we get there at the 5,000 and below? Once you've started to understand it's that who else is having opportunities or solutions around this particular issue. So it's to see from a technology dimension, what's broken, what's working, what could be. From the political context, what's broken, what's working, what could be. And you do that across all these different dimensions to get a clear understanding of the opportunity space as is today, as should be, so that you then partner with the entrepreneurs in the room to figure out how to shorten the time between what is and what should be. And so in terms of the partnerships and how we structure them is a bit intentional in that context. So we work with people like MasterCard Foundation, where we run 2 different programs, things like the Next Wave program, where we're trying to essentially accelerate reaching and breaking barriers for these entrepreneurs as far across the country as possible. And more interestingly for us as well recently is our digital economy program, where we're saying, how do we bring these people we're finding in these communities outside of Kampala to become visible into ecosystems like what Badru was walking us through earlier, and that once they're visible in these digital economies, then you can begin to plug interesting solutions on top of that. But I think the key and core encouragement to the entrepreneurs here is there's a lot of information and signals that each of the ecosystem players on the stage here has, that Startup Uganda has, that many different other hubs in here have. What we don't have and will never have the capacity to do is to interpret the detail for an entrepreneur down to this is step 1, this is step 7, this is step 19. So mine is to encourage the young people in the room that, yeah, it's great to have as many partnerships as you're seeing the logos and the partners here. And by the way, thank you to the partners that are walking this journey with us. But it's to encourage you as entrepreneurs to figure out, this is the insight or opportunity that has made me curious, that I would like to employ my skill, my time, my energy, my youth around solving. It's that become obsessed with understanding the different layers, dimensions, triggers, known and unknown, that drive how that problem space is evolving, and then be intentional about understanding how the stakeholders we've convened around that problem can be catalytic in nature to help you get started to solve it. But on our end, it's that, yes, we are constantly bringing partnerships on the table to try and create as much ecosystem of support around the entrepreneurs in the room, but it always ends up with, for you out there who's grinding, trying to make a difference in the society, hey, pick up from where we've stopped and let us know where we need to go further, but also what's the opportunity for you to make a difference next week. Thank you.
Great. So I hear the need for us to be very curious, for us to find out what there is and chase it. And I think even the panel this morning was very intentionally selected. They're not here just for the sake of being here. For those that have a question for them, they are here. So let's be sure to ask so that we can find out what we need. All right. Thank you so much, Arthur. Tony, we would like to understand a little bit more about the Stanbic Incubator and FlyHub. What's the difference, anyways, between these two, and what opportunities does each of them bring on the table for the innovator?
Thank you very much. When we got the invitation, there's a story in the Bible of Jesus and Zacchaeus. I think we all know that story. Even Muslims know that story.
Yeah.
When Zacchaeus stood and tried to get Jesus' attention, and he actually invited Jesus to his house, people said, you've gone to a sinner's house. And Jesus said, we have come, or I am coming to bring salvation to his house. When people think of banking and banks, over time, they think of them as the guys who are greedy for money and want to take money. We are seen as, the task later. When my elder, Uncle Badro, was talking about banks, he zeroed down on me. And that is the story everywhere, because if you talk to any entrepreneur out there, the first thing they'll tell you is access to capital is difficult. Yeah. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I will tell you, it is difficult. It is difficult. When we started the enterprise development program at the Business Incubator, we were saying, or asking the question of, how can we intentionally support young people or businesses that are growing? Now, we all know, I don't know if it's an allegation or it's a fact, Uganda is known to be the most entrepreneurial country. But I don't know if that is a fact or an allegation, because you sometimes struggle to see that level of entrepreneurship. But the truth is, access to capital is one of those crazy things. But we also understand that for you to be able to attract capital, be it from the bank or from venture capital funds or angel investors within your network, it's important for you to do something to your business. Pretty much like becoming this handsome guy who's going to the disco to attract a woman, or this nice female who's making herself pretty to attract a suitor. So what we do is to make you pretty as a business and advance you to a suitor. That is what the incubator does in a very simple way. What FlyHub does is to add magic to this story. We understand that it's a pain for your ordinary business to align itself digitally, in terms of, if you came to a bank, like you said, they will ask you for your 3 to 4 to 5 months records. Now, if you're a business that handles money in your drawer, and when Mama Najemba comes and you're giving her money to sort out her small issue and you can't track where your money is going, it becomes a difficult thing. So the ability to track your cash flows, the ability to make your business work efficiently, the ability to track your productivity as a business, that is where FlyHub comes in. They come to really solution in a digital way for the businesses, but not only for the businesses, but also the banking ecosystem. And the beauty about it is that now they're trying to solve for how we can support entrepreneurs easier. If I had you on FlexiPay, or if you got onto FlexiPay, and we used your transactions or your trading transactions, it should make it easy for me to decide on whether I should give you 2 million shillings, 20 million shillings, or 100 million shillings. I shouldn't wait to ask you for your grandmother's directions to be able to support you. And I think we're moving into a very digitized world where in the future, and Badru, you can tell me if this is a fact or not, we will easily be able to tell how much we can actually lend to you by your digital footprint, your digital financial footprint. Now, this is where FlyHub comes in, and I think that's a very beautiful story of imagining the two. These are both subsidiaries, so they're independent of the bank, meaning that we can go and not do bad manners outside the banking system because of the regulator not being there, but it gives us an opportunity to try out things we haven't done before. At the incubator, we're introducing a catalytic fund because we understand that when you go to the bank, like you said, they'll ask for a list of documents. Now, my board member is here, and I hope it doesn't come up in the board next week, but truth is, the banks really make it a little bit of a strain for young entrepreneurs like yourselves. And what we want to do with the catalytic funds is to say, let's take a chance on you. Let's invest in your business, and let's walk the journey with you so we can also follow our money. But the beauty about it is that using the digital solutions that we're bringing on board and the ability to lend you money quickly, you don't have to take 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks of resolutions with USB back and forth. We can actually make a decision in a day. That's where we're headed, and that is what we do. Thank you.
Great. How many have tried to get a bank loan? How long did the process take on average? 4 hours? 24 hours? Okay. Great. That's a good story. It only took 24 hours. But I think from what Tony is saying, it could take a minute because they have the data and they can do the evaluation, and you could have the funds anyways already. So the message is the opportunities exist. Can we understand what they require? Can we tap into them early enough so that we are relevant and we're not passed by? Grace, it was intentional that you're the last lady to speak. Okay, so tell us about Uganda Response Innovation Lab. Yeah, what is this anyways? And what are the connections that are existing between the social entrepreneurs and the public sector entities?
Okay, thank you very much. I will start by, we saw a number of people putting up their hands, innovators in the room. Is anyone having their innovation in the refugee space? Any of the innovators here? We see one person, two, a number of us, which is good. Would be better to see all the other innovators still if the innovations apply to the refugee community. My name is Grace, and I work for the Uganda Response Innovation Lab. And Response Innovation Lab was formed as a collaboration where the humanitarian actors, the INGOs, particularly Save the Children, World Vision, Oxfam, Civic, and then Washington University saw a gap in response. For example, we have a war in Gaza. Everyone is going in to respond. No collaboration, they're not using local solutions, they are bringing ideas from different places, non-tested, and putting them in action. A lot of challenges there. So Response Innovation Lab was formed to create collaboration, localization, and solving of challenges within the humanitarian space. In Uganda, our mandate is, first of all, the 1.5 million plus, as of today, refugees within the country, but also looking at the Karamoja region where we are seeing a bit of challenges with hunger, etc. One of the key things that we actually had to do is ecosystem mapping, where we had to understand what does the innovation and the entire ecosystem look like within Uganda, and what does that look like in relation to the humanitarian space. Who are the players, the private sector that we are talking about, the social entrepreneurs, some of us here, the innovators, within the country, and how are they linking within the humanitarian space. And of course, the gaps there is what Response Innovation Lab is doing. We are doing the matching and collaboration, engaging and brokering of the different sectors. But also we created a database, which is a one-stop space for you to find data or linkages to different stakeholders. For example, if you wanted to know people who are private sector entities that are having work done in the Nakivale refugee settlement around climate adaptive programming or nutrition, there's a one-stop place to do that. But also we are a linkage with different donors and high NGOs where they will come to Response Innovation Lab to ask for the different players within the different sectors that are doing different works within the humanitarian space. The end goal that Response Innovation Lab wants to see is how do we create collaboration within the actors, including government, of course, but also how do we make sure the social entrepreneurs, the local solutions can actually have evidence which is very important for something to scale within any space, to have clear evidence. So we provide things like meal support, and also support financially, but also with technical assistance for innovators to actually test their different products within the refugee space in Uganda and the humanitarian space. So generally, that's what Response Innovation Lab is. And great opportunities, one of the highlight opportunities I can mention at this point is we actually have Utabiti that's working with the private sector. It's a USAID-funded project looking at market-led livelihood within the refugee space. And we're answering the question around how do we come from dependency to self-reliance, which is what the refugees need to move from, depending from World Food Program food to being self-reliant and providing for themselves. And what we see is private sector, what is it doing there through Grameen and Swiss Contact. And our role as Response Innovation Lab is to really facilitate the innovation, but also we have a current call for applications, especially for social entrepreneurs, local social entrepreneurs, innovators, to actually have your solutions tested within Nakivale and Paladek refugee settlement. And the evidence, when gathered, then we have a good ground to stand and say this works, this will support the entire call for self-reliance within the refugee space.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. So collaboration, the opportunities do exist. I would like to come back to Enoch here from Famnera. Earlier you spoke to us about your launch as Dutch agri-tech company within Netherlands. We would like to believe that it was not a walk through the park. There must have been challenges in terms of you targeting to be an international partner. Yeah? So what were those challenges? But most importantly, how did you overcome these challenges? Yeah.
So as a Ugandan startup company, especially within the agricultural sector, much of we normally have limitations when it comes to financial aspects, because I have a friend in the US, she raised $3 million with just an idea under NFT. She's building an NFT for NFTs. And here in Uganda, yes, yeah. So she's dealing in NFTs. Here in Uganda, you realize you can run business for over 3 years, where you believe to have passed the failing stage. You've proven, and still it's hard to raise capital to get you to the next level. So that was a big challenge, and most of these countries to set up, they make it very hard to set up, such that when you finally set up, you actually value what you've been able to put together. For instance, unlike countries like Estonia or US, where they have tried to make it easy that you can actually register and register your company probably online and have everything that you need without leaving your home. In those countries, you need actually to, first of all, travel there. They need certain things physically, and also they make it that everybody in the value chain must make money from you, right from the Lego, those that are going to offer notary services, up to when you finally do so. And places like in UAE, where we've set up specifically in ADGM, Abu Dhabi Global Market, on Al Maria Island, you realize that they have to make sure their consultants that are offering these services, who are probably charging between 10K to 15K, must probably make some money. They must offer you that service. Otherwise, it's hard to make it and go through. So those are big challenges as African startups trying to make sure we can position ourselves. Here in Uganda, they call it okwetega, because you need to go there and position yourself in that space so you can be able to make impact and get recognized. So that's a big challenge that personally I faced, raising that money to be able to put things together that out there you can't even register a company without a formal address. Here in Uganda, you can actually register 10 companies and you have them in your pocket. You move around with them in your bag. Or just have one office and have like 20 companies in the same address, even call your friends to use the same office space. Out there, especially where I have experience with Netherlands and UAE, before you get a registration certificate, you must have a unique address. And nobody else can register using the same address. And it's quite expensive. You realize it goes for instance, in Netherlands, where we've set up in Ede Wageningen, near Wageningen University, it goes up to 2,000 euros per month. And in Edegem, it goes up to 3,000 to 4,000 dirhams per month. And so it's quite expensive that you can't get registered, you can't set up without paying that much. Of course, on top of the
speaking to the
consultants and
challenges,
labor services.
it's really a challenge. I want to understand, how did you overcome these challenges?
Yeah.
What did we do different?
Yeah. So among the things we had to do was actually to line up potential partners. And starting with 2020, when we got hooked with NSSF under NSSFI Innovator, we made a run and being able to have other partners like UNCDF, ITC, TechnoServe, along the way with even customers themselves, where we've been bootstrapping. You realize you have to raise this much and be able to have all this that you're making from all these different contractors to be able to actually have this put together, honestly, to be told.
Great. So this journey started in 2020, and it came to life this year, right? Sure. So I guess we understand it's not for the faint-hearted, but the opportunities exist. We have people to learn from. Our journey shouldn't be as complicated because there's evidence of what he has gone through, but he has made it happen so we can learn and make our journey smoother and easier from their key experiences. Thank you so much, Enoch. Badru, you're very, very passionate about unpacking opportunities within the innovation ecosystem, and you spoke a lot about it. We would like to still hear some more about the practical elements that we can pick and run with in order for us to remain competitive as innovators.
Thank you. Okay, so let me just share the experience that we have actually done at NFT Mawazo, where we have incubated a company called NFT Mobility, which is now a registered business and it's running. Now, NFT Mobility came from the concept of, we looked at a service we all use every day. Probably everybody, most of us have used this service, which is the boda boda. We all jump on it from A to B, and when they're not there, our life is really messed up. But that ecosystem is the most unregistered, uncontrolled, and unstructured ecosystem. And every time a politician wants to either gain or whatever, that's the space they go to. But that ecosystem contributes probably about 6-7% of our GDP, if you just calculate rides per hour per day. And then when we looked at that space, we then went in and we actually invested as NFT and with partnership, obviously, with MasterCard. And we operated about 200 motorcycles and understood. Now, that is when now the unpacking I talked about starts. When you see that simple rider, there are a number of things around that rider. There is, he needed fuel for the day. He needed an infrastructure that works. He needed money to finance, to load the bike in the morning. And that money must come to him in a cheaper way. So that, because when you get to ride that bike, you're going to want to pay him 1,000 shillings, right? So you're going to bargain him to the ground. So the standard ecosystem does not fit that player at that normal play. So then when you now come down to the space that you're in, the platforms, the Safe Borders, the Uber, the Bolt, you're looking at this conversation from a slightly different angle, and you are looking at, okay, I have the clients, I'm going to bargain on the price. But you've not actually unpacked the cost of that guy who's actually doing the riding. And then now you come back down to even at the level of the courier businesses, how we get that e-commerce business moving. How do most of us start the many startups which are looking at e-commerce. But all of you believe, or all of us tend to believe, that I will sell this item on my website for 15K. And, but the buyer thinks that if I go online now and pay my 15K, I want that item delivered to me today. However, the ride from where that warehouse is to your house in Muyenga or Bukoto or wherever is probably 7K. But you haven't taken into that consideration. So a lot of you who run even the, is it Instagram or Facebook businesses, that's a challenge that you never think about. Now, that challenge means that if you understand that challenge, then you have to think about the transport ecosystem. And when you think about the transport ecosystem, now that's when you come to aggregating. It means that I put my order in today, and hopefully 50 other people from Tinda will have the same order. So tomorrow morning, when my order is picked up from the warehouse, which is where now, when I'm talking about the unpacking, I'm now created a new business, which is called the fulfillment business. There is somebody who will go to the different makers, collect those items today, consolidate them in the warehouse, and then tomorrow they'll put those on 3 bikes, right? Those 3 bikes will cost maybe 15K, but they'll be able to deliver to 50 homes, right? Which means you've now enabled the ecosystem. But 80% of the e-commerce businesses in the house are not actually thinking of unpacking that ecosystem, which explains why, with the demand we have, with the population which is ready to buy online businesses have not grown because they've not unpacked that ecosystem. And that's why for us, we believe that model is the key to unpacking growth in online business and digital ecosystem. So that's a very basic example, but we've actually spent time and we've understood that those are the challenges. Thank you.
Okay, well, you're speaking to my heart. That is safe border that they're talking about in many ways. So, but I will not say much about it. Thank you so much, Badru.
But you could share that at least the experience talked about when we did the safe food.
Yeah. Exactly, because we've done safe border food and shop, and really that journey was not quite easy. So when they said who has failed, my hand was up because we had to eventually close food and shop because it was very exciting. It's a very exciting innovation we came up with during the lockdown. There was no movement, and we needed business for our border riders, and the customers needed food to eat, and everyone was locked up. But we needed to appreciate the ecosystem. Who's the Ugandan? How do they feed? How do they prefer? They want to go to the market and look at the tomato. That's a Ugandan. They want to check its size. Is it ripe enough before they buy it? But there's opportunity. How do we change it? So it's a good one, really.
So I want to create a deal here because we're business here.
Yeah.
Alongside Tony with FlyHub, and we can actually, and the model we're proposing, we can come and recreate those 2 businesses.
Sure, the doors
Deal?
are open.
Thank you.
Okay, you know, Arthur, there's something they say about, in the Bible they tell us that blessed are they who believe without seeing. But I think practically seeing is believing. And in Luganda they say, amaso gomuganda galiwa gali mungalo. So we want to hear, in terms of the Future Lab Studio, tell us about the success stories. Do they actually exist? So we can know that everything we are preaching today actually happens. What are the stories that of those entrepreneurs who have successfully partnered with the large private sector through your organization?
Thank you, right? He who believes without seeing will inherit the kingdom of God. But with you, But no, through the Digital Economy Program, for example, that program was designed specifically to prepare Ugandan startups to partner with large-scale technology companies. In this case, Community Pass, which is a technology by MasterCard Inc. I remember the first time when we were setting up the checkpoint or the checklist to qualify as a partner was more than 50 touch points. And that before we even pick up a conversation with you, who has ever heard of an OFAC check? Anyone in the room? Right? There's a checklist of are you a potential terrorist or associated with terrorists before we can even get in the room to have a conversation with you. So it's that to work with these large-scale technology companies, and it's the same whether it's Microsoft or Google or whoever, they have their standards. And they're not often able to navigate or mitigate away from those standards unless there's some kind of market intermediary that's doing the heavy lifting for them, because the penalties for them are quite substantial. They're publicly traded entities. They work with sensitive customers. So any person they ingest into their ecosystem presents risk to the whole ecosystem. So what we've done with the Digital Economy Program is to say, for you, the large technology vendor, help us understand what's a bad day for you, right? Help us understand what's your aspiration. So for example, in the context of this partner, it's that, look, our next 1 billion customers are not going to come from, our friend in blue, picking their customers from that side. They're going to come from the rest of the developing world. And that in the developing world, it's actually not us and our friends in blue who are competing, it's cash we are competing against. And that why is cash the prevalent means of exchange of value? So as you begin to dig deeper, you find that there are certain systemic issues that as a technology provider are out of your scope for now, but that you need someone to help you tackle some of those situations so that your Rails can then unlock value together with that person for that end customer. So what we've done with players like, for example, Hamwe or MobiPay, who are going into communities to understand, what are these farmers aspiring to achieve? I'm just a farmer who would like to access Stanbic Bank loans to go and buy a TV for us to watch the news at night, right? Ordinary people in communities, far and wide, have the same aspirations some of us here in Kampala have. They just want to live a dignified life. If you begin to unpack what they're doing around, A, being productive so that they can be on some path to that dignified life. B, towards being able to build wealth. Let me keep some of what I'm being able to capture on a daily basis for me to be able to do that. And then C, my kids will fall sick. I'll need to buy food. There are those lifestyle expenditures that are difficult to avoid. So what Hamwe, MobiPay, and these kinds of players were doing before this partnership was they were manually collecting data points on each of these different consumers and working with an ecosystem of partners in the financial space, in the agriculture equipment space, so on and so forth, to convene value around them. But they were constantly finding that you have to repeat your model everywhere you're going. What Community Pass has done is say, here are some rails that we can help you figure out some of these things beforehand. Let's remove the need for you to figure out how to work with a customer who is offline. Let's remove the need for you to replicate your agent network across the country, because wherever you want to scale to, there's an agent point. Let's remove the need for you to figure out how to get a large farmer association that gives you access to 3 million plus farmers in Uganda by saying they are part of this program, so on and so forth. We've removed certain distribution barriers, certain value creation, value orchestration barriers, so that a Hamwe and a MobiPay, etc. can just come and ride on those rails to get to market faster. So that's one example of what we've been able to pull off. Because of these partnerships, these entities are now into strong partnerships like what we have with Equity Bank. And I hope one day soon we are also going to be speaking to Tony and Elizabeth around Stanbic Bank joining this ecosystem, right? It's that from the bank side, we have capital we'd like to get into the hands of that farmer. From your side as MobiPay, as Hamwe, we know you reach that farmer. We don't have to replicate what you've done. Can we work together to make it possible? What we've done through this partnership is pre-engineer the rails, the distribution network, the orchestration infrastructure, so that both parties just create a use case, pilot it, and then what works gets scaled up. So this partnership provides the rails, it provides the distribution network through an agent network, it provides capacity building for the startup, for the intermediaries they work with, and the other partner, the industry leader like the bank or the telecom company, whoever that they're partnering with, around how do we organize ourselves to capture this value. And then crucially, it builds the market or go-to-market infrastructure for you to be able to do it faster, more sustainably, and to capture a lot more value while you do it. So those are just 2 examples out of many others that we have, but it's to encourage the entrepreneurs in the room to head over to de.innovationvillage.africa to learn a little bit more about that particular program, but there's many other ways we partner with entrepreneurs to reach more customers better, faster, and more sustainably.
Okay. Great. I guess we know where to go, so let's not hesitate to go there. And when you spoke, I think we need to hear a little bit more from Stanbic Bank, because we still need the ecosystem of the bank because we need the money. So, Tony, we need to hear some more about how you're helping to mitigate the risks that come with lending startups. Yeah?
Okay. That's a very interesting one, and I'm glad that my brother at the beginning said it himself. In Uganda, we like to open businesses, and we open all the time. That in itself is a risk already. Okay, because let's be real, and you know, some of these conversations need us to be inconveniently truthful, okay, because it's one thing to blame and say, oh, the government is not doing this, or if we are in a situation where people are opening up businesses every single day, that's probably why they call us entrepreneur, but it's also the reason why thousands of businesses never make it till the end of the year. So that's also a very, very important thing. So that is something that's very, very important to, you know, focus on as a risk. But I want to probably look at it differently. You see, you asked me about mitigation, and this is one big problem that happens in most banking systems. I'm not a banker originally, and I remember entering one of the first meetings, and everyone was talking in acronyms and mitigation of risk, mitigation of risk. Truth is, if we keep on talking about mitigation of risks and we never allow entrepreneurs, innovators to fail, we do not allow them room to fail, we're doing them a disservice. Because by you telling me what am I doing to mitigate the risk, that is in a way telling me what am I doing not to lend to these people to save my money. And that's the inconvenient truth, you know. So I think from the incubator side and from the Fly Hub side, we are saying, how can we allow for this constant failure? Because, Uncle Badri, you'll know, you have to constantly fail until you get it right. Yep. You fail, you iterate, you fail, you iterate, until you get it right. I've never known of an entrepreneur who has got it right the first time. Because I can guarantee you that guy, after some time, has a situation where he goes into a dip. So that's also possible. So are we allowing for opportunities for entrepreneurs, innovators to fail? And as they fail, we support them along the journey. Because it's one thing for me to say, you failed, we can't deal with you anymore. Or to say, you failed, but maybe next time you will fail well. And for you to fail well, what can we do together? And I think that is where, you know, those conversations need to come in. We talked about, you know, entities that are really struggling in terms of funding. And again, when you go to anyone with money, angel investors are quite interesting because they have money to play around with. But angel investors as well know that out of 10 businesses, probably 1 or 2 will make it. They know that. So if they know that and they have this money and they're willing to play around with it, how about the entrepreneur or we, the guys who are supposedly the financiers? So I think we need to start approaching innovation with that kind of mindset. There's a very interesting book that I would recommend by a lady called Amy something. It's called Teaming Up for Success. But it's really about how to learn from failure. I always say failure is the best school fees you can ever pay for achievement or success. Because once you fail, you know for sure that that thing won't happen that way and you will iterate. So that's a very important one. But finally, as I conclude, I just want to talk about a very interesting example that I engaged with a couple of weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago in Nairobi. Pick Up Mtaani. Pick Up Mtaani is a very interesting delivery service They do not deliver. I am not taking your space. There's no competition here. But Pickup Mitani is a company that people fail to understand what they do. Uncle Badru has talked about you selling an item for 15,000 shillings and the cost of moving that item is pretty much the same. So it doesn't make sense. These guys have innovated around making deliveries cheap and affordable to the last mile. Now, when they tried to speak to most financial institutions, they were seen as outcasts with some crazy ideas that have no ROI. You know, you think about it and you're thinking, centers are D. But today, they're one of probably Africa's great success stories when it comes to logistics and supporting the movement of goods and services within the Nairobi and Mombasa area. So we can learn from that. And we can learn not to fear innovators. You know, innovators are crazy people. A guy comes and tells you, I can fly food. And you're like, what? Fly food? But you see, they always say the crazy ones are the ones who produce the great things. So we need to be allowed to allow for them to fail, for them to innovate, and for them to do what they have to do. So instead of saying mitigate, I would rather say, how can we work with them on the journey? And Uncle Badru, that's where we come into the conversation around collaboration. I shouldn't be working in silos from anyone here. We should say, how can we make this story bigger and merrier? Because the more we work in silos, we're not serving everyone. And one very interesting thing about innovators and entrepreneurs is you'll see him at his hub. He's coming to ask for support and what financing is available. Then you'll see him at my hub, what financing is available and support. And then you'll see. They keep running around. So instead of running around and wasting time running around, why can't we collaborate and create a greater story? I think that's the message I really came with. Thanks.
All right, so we shall not mitigate, but we need to ensure that we allow for failure. And I think for the leaders in the room, the entrepreneurs, the founders especially, we need to give room for failure. I do work, of course. We say we are a startup in many ways, but not a startup, but because every day we are trying something new, and we do, it's experiment after experiment. What if we did this? What if we did this? Will it work? And it takes a certain level of trust and, you know, allowing the team to create, to dream, and from there things will happen. Because when we created Safecar, it was because of someone in the room who said, but we can do this thing. And we could, because the technology existed. We needed to amplify it a little, and here we are today. So thank you. So as we wrap up, Grace, I would like to hear from you about opportunities. It's not just about opportunities. What opportunities are available for social and impact entrepreneurs, both for the public and the private sectors? And also, you could give us your parting shots.
Okay. That's a very good one. I believe the opportunities start with the formation of the Response Innovation Lab being a collaboration between the INGOs and them wanting to look at the local solutions, the entrepreneurs within the countries as we are responding to humanitarian space. So people like World Vision, like Save the Children that host us in Uganda are saying what's happening out there, what are the social entrepreneurs doing, and they're actually facilitating pilots within the humanitarian space. I'll give an example of Vertical Gardens. It's an innovation that was really a business within Kampala, within the urban setting, and with the refugees having small spaces given to them, we are thinking, how do they grow vegetables for their nutrition, right? And we are moving that entrepreneur to pilot within Rhino Camp. And the learning there, I know they've really scaled into other collaborations with CARE Uganda, that's also within the humanitarian space, but also people like Design Without Borders. So we see that generally, the INGOs, the donors themselves, for example, Save the Children, the example, USA, the example I gave under Utabiti, where they're looking at what are the social entrepreneurs doing, the innovators, the refugee-led innovations, the generally Uganda-led innovations doing within the space that can actually be piloted and learned from and probably scaled to ensure self-reliance. So we are really looking at not building solutions as INGOs, but looking at how do we see what's out there, see by mapping, and then have that come into the humanitarian space to solve the challenges that we are facing around the different sectors. And again, I should mention that Response Innovation Lab is at the center of that collaboration, of the innovation support. So reach out to Response Innovation Lab, and we are a public good out there to really support that entire ecosystem, to ensure that local solutions and localization and scaling of local solutions happens within the humanitarian space.
Thank you so much. I think we've spoken so much about collaboration this morning. I don't know if we have 5 minutes to allow some questions from the audience to ask these panelists here. Anything. So we have 2 minutes only, I'm told. And 2 minutes, it's 2 questions. Yes, gentlemen here, maybe someone could help with the mic. So there's one hand there and there. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Edward from Arua. My first question goes to Mr. Badru. Mostly when we are looking at the ecosystem, how to make the whole ecosystem sustainable, most of us, the entrepreneurs, don't want to work together. We want to do it ourselves. We want to be the star. We want to be the frontliner. What advice do you give us to deal with this? And my second question goes to the Stanbic man. Under enterprise development, one thing that we have faced challenge with the enterprise we are in is that we have reached the level where we want to scale up. Now, raising finances for this scale up is a challenge. How do we deal with this? In the earlier days, they taught us that we should build systems. We have built the systems, we have tested our idea, we have some line of clients. Now we want to scale up. How do we deal with this? Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure that's a clear question. Thank you.
Selfishly looking for a woman. Any woman has a hand? Come on.
That was
No? All right.
Yeah.
Then you have the last question.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. My question is going to Makembo. My question is, how do you protect individual ideas? Because we may have our own ideas, but you'll find ideas are being repackaged and they say your ideas doesn't work. So that is one of the scaring things within Entrepreneurial Hub. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we will go to Badru first, and then after you'll take the 2 questions all together.
Okay. I like that. That's the question that came out because that's one of our biggest weaknesses. And but the first thing you need to do is how big is your ambition? Where do you want to grow, right? Now, if your ambition is big enough, then you have the humility to know that you alone cannot take yourself to what I call the mountaintop, right? So there's a saying I tend to give to people I'm mentoring is that the mission is always greater than the moment, right? So if you've clearly defined where you want to be, you want to create $1 million business, right? Then look at yourself in the mirror and think, can I alone create that $1 million business? The answer is no. Now, once you've cleared that in your own self, that you need to work with other people, then that's why I tend to want to grow the structure. Then you realize how other people can actually contribute to your mission, to your dream. Then it becomes easy for you to work with them, right? The biggest victim is always ourselves, not the other ones. Because the way you interact, once you've realized what the dream is, and you've internalized that, and you've even monetized it, then it's easy. Our challenge is we have these ambitions, but we never see how big they are. We don't put enough time and effort to actually appreciate that. Once you appreciate that, it's very easy to work with other people. And really for me, that would be the answer. There's no other magic. There is no external book. There's no book that's going to tell you how to do that. It is yourself. If you think small and you can manage it small, then that's going to be your story. But if you want to think big, be big, then appreciate that. It's very easy to work with other people. Then just want to touch on the ideas one. Sorry, it might not have been affected to me. But again, that's another self-defeating concept that we tend to have. If you're able to innovate and come up with a wonderful idea, you don't know how far that idea is going to go, and you might not even have the capacity to grow it there. But if somebody else can pick that idea up and grow it, every time you see that idea growing, you should reaffirm your capabilities. It is not the only idea you have, so you can build more ideas. So the whole essence of share, discuss. As you discuss, your ideas get better and better. The model I've shown, I've been discussing it for a year. And every time I discuss with somebody, I get new ideas. I get new ideas to the point that I can now publicly come and say, this is the model, because it is defended in all different areas. And I've been given so much input on that model that I know it works, right? Because I've actually given it the sanity check by sharing with other people. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Arthur?
Sure. Thank you. I think just by show of hands, who here has pivoted in your enterprise? There were a few who said they were entrepreneurs, right? By show of hands, have you ever pivoted your business or your idea? Right? How many of you in your pivot were killing off something that is better to partner with someone to do? No one killed the future because it's not core to your business. Yeah? Right? So I would encourage you at some point to have a conversation with these entrepreneurs who have done that. But the main thing around breaking this silo mentality is you're going to spend so much youthful energy, capital, motivation, sweat and tears solving for something someone has already solved for. And to the idea person as well, I didn't catch your name earlier, unfortunately, but it's the same thing. It's that ideas are a dime a dozen. Let's have some reality checks here, right? Capital rewards execution. The market rewards execution. So I want to guarantee you that for any idea you have had or will ever have, at least one person that you know and one person in the world has had it. What the market will reward is momentum on that execution. So it's to get you to ship fast, fail forward, and learn. One other key challenge we keep seeing with the entrepreneurs in our ecosystem is people take feedback in bad stead. When someone gives you feedback, you think either they don't know what they're doing, they have too much English, this guy doesn't know I'm the next Mark Zuckerberg. There's a lot of key things but one reason why I like entrepreneurs and I know his cliche, like Elon Musk, is they fail big and they fail publicly and they fail fast and they move fast. That's why he's able to run 5 different groundbreaking organizations in real time while you abuse him, but he's prospering. And that's what I want to encourage you as entrepreneurs. Be comfortable being vulnerable. Be comfortable discussing your ideas, but for crying out loud, quit the PowerPoint decks and start doing. You will evolve your idea much faster and go much further as you do that. But I also want to leave us with a certain mantra. For whatever it is that you're working on, right, there's different types of what we call MVPs. My favorite MVP is called the Wizard of Oz MVP. In front, you have a cool website that shows the thing works, but in the back end, it's actually an Excel spreadsheet, right? And that it's enabled by partners like SafeBorder. If you're doing a logistics fulfillment play, you know that someone has already invested in the technology, has the bikes, has the network. Why do you have to reinvent it for you to prove your idea works? It's to encourage you in the room to always find, for this thing I'm trying to create, what is the process to get it from us who are making it into the hands of a customer 2 or 3 times over, right? And who is already doing some part of that step or that process, right? Can we partner? Can I leverage their API? Can I leverage what they're doing? Can they pay me a commission for referral? To the customer, I'm still owning the experience of creation to enjoyment. But from my end, in terms of building this business idea, I'm learning the core of what it takes to do this business, and therefore which piece of it I need to focus on getting better. So I think that then responds to both your questions around why it's important to partner and why ideas, my friend, are a dime a dozen. There are graveyards full of them. Mine is to encourage you to get out of your seat and build. And someone in this room is standing between you and 1,000 users. Someone in this room or the person that they know is standing between you and $1 million. Don't leave before you find them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we've had this morning. I'm sure there are more questions, but the beautiful thing about the digital age, all their details are right there. You can find them either way, yeah, in some ways, and ask all the questions that you may have left behind. I do hope that this conversation has been quite enlightening in terms of the opportunities that lie in for the digital startups. There's so much that has been said. Let's collaborate. Let's be curious. Let's understand the ecosystem. The policies are for us. And most importantly, don't be afraid to fail. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen at the panel. Thank you. It was great.
Thank you. I must say that the ecosystem has photographer. We're here. Could we stand for a photo, please? And because I'm the MC, I'm just going to be in every photo. Gentlemen and ladies, what's your names? Carol, could you please ask your panel to stand here for a photo, please? Julius, I'm going to ask you to come back and like smile for the camera. Otor, Badru, photos are good for the world to know that we exist. We spoke relevant English. Thank you very much. There's no more flashes. I grew up in a generation where there's a flash, and then, you know, the photo has been captured. Yeah, they've innovated in photography. So sometimes, and I mean the ecosystem space, but there's a lot of lingo, and it could just leave your brain feeling overwhelmed with MVP and GDR and all these things that may not be relatable to you. But I hope in all this conversation, something stuck. Like I said, this year, we really want practical things. So we have deal rooms. And some of the people on this stage have a deal room where you can go to get more information. I know when you hear things like there's a catalytic fund, that's very interesting. But this morning, as we were in our masterclass about venture capital, we also learned that the chemistry of financing, right? It's a courtship process. It's not free money. And I think a lot of what I continue to see in the ecosystem is grant entrepreneurs. But I really like that the masterclass helped us understand the financing that exists. Not all financing is yours. And you shouldn't be excited about anything that you hear has finance on it. Understand what it is. So I hope you can go to the business incubator space just to learn about what they have to provide. I'm finding my notes and remembering my password. So our hashtag, and why we should really have a hashtag and make sure that you actually tweet about it. 3 months ago, I was in Berlin and talking to a really brilliant journalist with a big company and a council of one of the states. And all they could articulate of Uganda was not very motivating. So I talked about the innovation space, and they were thinking all software developers come from India. And it's just sad because there's a lot of work, which is a reflection in this room, that we still need to tell our narrative of who we are and the capacity that we do. So when there's things like hashtags, and why it's important, it's not just to make Startup Uganda trend. It's to make sure that someone in Germany can actually know that we are more than potholes that are growing. That we are more than gorillas, and gorillas are great, but there's also tech-savvy people building innovations. Because when that trends, it helps you find the next person in another conference, and I hope that you can do that. So Badru talked about his AI, and he really paused around it so much, and I felt that, you know, graphic designers and anyone in the creative space was a little bit hurt by that. We still have a lot to offer. So tech team, could you please showcase some coolness?
Open your eyes. It is not what we have, but what we do Let's go.
We are headed to the big leagues, Giant! From the ruins of great Zimbabwe!
You are a disgrace to your name, Chilo.
I should be out there making them pay!
Move?
You will not have him again!
You chose this fate.
You think that's fast? Watch this.
All right, let's play.
I mean, Badru, do you still have anything to say about your AI? So just a glimpse, right? That the creative sector is equally going really digital, and there's so many options for us to explore. So adapt or be left behind is our theme for this year. And because I'm learning good manners on protocol, our PS is here. And that means we really need to honor our anthems. I'm not a really great musician, so I hope that we can stand up, and technology is going to help us sing the anthem. Collaborate with me. I'm not a paid MC, so I need to seem really cool. Sound, you do not want to make me sing. But I could, don't tweet about it. Are we ready? Otherwise, I have to expose that I don't know the stanzas too well. Technology, work with me. The anthem is on YouTube. Disruptive. It has really refused, but we can do this together. All right? We know the anthem, so let's go. Oh, Uganda. Wonderful. And my music teacher needs to see what I just did today. Thank you very much. Please have your seats. Without further ado, I'm going to invite the Vice Chair of Startup Uganda to please. Oh, I am the Vice Chair. Goodness, I like my role too much. I'm going to invite the Chair of Startup Uganda, Mr. Richard Zulu.
Thank you very much, Jean. Jean is the Vice Chairperson of Startup Uganda. Okay, good afternoon to you all. Our esteemed guests, the Permanent Secretary from the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, Dr. Amina Zawede. Representatives from UICT. We have our principal, Dr. Frederick Chitogo, and the organizing team consisting of Flavia and her other representatives, development partners, entrepreneurs, students, innovation hubs. Welcome to Uganda Innovation Week 2023. It's now 5 years. It's now 5 years since representatives from different innovation hubs came together to start Startup Uganda. For those of you who don't know, when I mention innovation hubs or entrepreneurial support organizations, these are entities, institutions whose mandate is focused on ensuring that entrepreneurs have access to capital, have access to the technical assistance they need to build good businesses, linkages to markets, and most importantly, a network that they can rely on for mentorship. So 5 years ago, these institutions came together, and the reason for coming together was to address fragmentation of the Ugandan ecosystem. We noticed that different actors are working towards supporting the Ugandan entrepreneur, but these interventions are actually not speaking to each other. And so Startup Uganda was born as a member-based organization consisting of these entities that I'm calling entrepreneurial support organizations, who would leverage their collective capacity to drive advocacy in terms of creating an enabling environment for young entrepreneurs to thrive, raise financial resources 10x, 10 times more than their capacity, but most importantly, serve the Ugandan entrepreneurs better. And so these key intermediaries are in a position, because very many actors work through them to support the Ugandan entrepreneur. Development partners work through them. Government works through them. And so they are in a unique position to bring all these pieces together in terms of pushing for better collaboration within the Ugandan ecosystem. However, these are the entrepreneurial support organizations. We feel there's still room for also development partners and government agencies to adopt such a structure in terms of how they collaborate with regards to ensuring that fragmentation is addressed. Now, let me speak a little bit about where the Ugandan ecosystem is in terms of the digital economy. So in 2022, which was last year, Uganda was one of the top 10 destinations in Africa for what we call venture capital. Venture capital is basically a form of financing that goes towards early-stage startups. Early-stage startups need a lot of patient financing, money they can pay back over 3-4 years. And so the venture capital industry is meant to address that. But Uganda has almost no venture capitalists. There are very, very, very few. I can practically count them on my hands. But we were one of the top 10 destinations. But in that, we only accounted for only 3% of the total venture capital deals. Most of these deals were going to countries that you can imagine: Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, so forth and so on. And most of these deals, 78% of these deals were into technology or technology-enabled companies, okay? Operating in a variety of sectors. 78% of those deals. They went into fintech, they went into e-commerce, edtech, clean tech, supply chain tech, health tech, name it. So what does this mean? This means that as a country, we still have a lot to do in terms of becoming a very attractive destination for investors, for instance, largely into our tech-enabled and tech companies. Today, I'm reminded about many entrepreneurs who are leveraging aspects of the digital economy to achieve their business goals. We have Laura, who's a businesswoman, running a small business that's leveraging social media to provide travel experiences to individuals interested in vacations, staycations, and other leisure activities in Uganda and other countries through her company called Travoneza. We have Stella, who's extending bundled agricultural services that include agricultural inputs, access to off-takers, financial services, and insights to farmer member-based organizations in Uganda, leveraging the MyCo digital platform. We had her being mentioned here earlier. We have Innocent, who has just launched the Kasaiba Go Card that is focused on digitizing the transport ticketing system to help operators better run their operations. And many of these entrepreneurs have in one way or another received various support from many institutions as they build their businesses. But now what we're starting to see is that as these entrepreneurs receive support, enterprise support organizations are speaking to each other in terms of, one, how they run joint programming to support these entrepreneurs, but two, how they even conduct due diligence within the startup ecosystem and also raise resources for those businesses. I must say, as we stand here as an association, we are seeing very many collaborations happening within the startup ecosystem among different actors. We have the NSF High Innovator that is deploying $10 million in partnership with 13 entrepreneur support organizations. We had the COVID Relief Fund that was under the Innovation Village, working with up to 5 entrepreneur support organizations, and many other interventions that bring together different actors. However, limited access to credit, tech companies are very asset light. They experience expensive talent, okay, especially when it comes to technical talent, the high cost of devices and data that make it very challenging. But what we're starting to see is that as businesses grow, a growing number of entrepreneurs are selecting to domicile their headquarters outside Uganda because of ease of incorporation, friendly business environment, proximity to capital generation, and robust intellectual property. Recently, I was talking to a friend of mine who runs an organization called ShipShop in e-commerce, and he has now moved to Kenya. And there are very many others who have moved to Kenya for that matter. So these are challenges we seek to address. And Dr. Amina, I think for us as we move forward, it's very critical as an ecosystem that we deepen our engagement with the public sector. As we believe many of the challenges we experience can only be solved from a systemic approach. It's not about our logos. These are very serious issues where we all have to come together. And the good thing, we have a good relationship with the Ministry of ICT through our representation on the Business Process Outsourcing and Innovation Council, where we are developing or have developed the BPO policy and strategy. Also, a few of our members have been part of NISP, where you extended support to them to support startups. However, given the launch of the Digital Transformation Roadmap, we want to deepen our engagement in 2 pillars: innovation and entrepreneurship, and aspects of digital skilling. So, actually for me, I would have expected very many professors from UICT here with us today as part of deepening engagement. Now, we are gathered here for the 5th edition of the Uganda Innovation Week, an annual gathering of entrepreneurs, startups, students, academia, government, development partners, and corporates to share knowledge, create awareness about their work, and most importantly, network. These platforms are very critical. Uganda Innovation Week is not just about the logos you see here. It's a platform for the entrepreneurs, largely, for the young people to come and understand what is really happening. And today, I see so many students around, which for me is good. Because if we do not expose such platforms to students, then we are not building for the next generation. Uganda has an average age of 15 years, 15, average Ugandan is 15 years. So that's an opportunity we have to tap into. This edition is focused on the theme, adapt or be left behind. Opportunities for the Uganda entrepreneur in the digital economy. And as Michael said, we've taken an intentional approach in ensuring that digital startups we have in the ecosystem that have solutions that attend to MSMEs are offered a platform within which to create awareness and drive adoption of their solutions. MSMEs are able to learn about these solutions through the business clinics. We have also created a platform that allows startups to start engagements with potential investors, both in person and virtually through the deal room. We understand the investor-investor relationship takes a lot of time, but the deal rooms are here to help you get started. I would like to thank our sponsoring partners that have made this possible. So we have the Youth Startup Academy, which is a consortium of Hive Collab, NITA-U, ITC, and COSME. ITC is the International Trade Center of the UN. Then we have the International Trade Center and the Embassy of the Netherlands. Those are different interventions. We have Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. Konrad Adenauer Stiftung is a political advocacy unit that is focused on seeing how we can embed aspects of advocacy into how we approach innovation. We cannot think about innovation without thinking about the public sector implications. We have UNCDF, SBC Consulting, Innovation Village, Response Innovation Lab, Stanbic Bank, Enable, World Food Program, JICA, and of course our hosts, the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance through the National ICT Innovation Hub. We have also worked with the East African Venture Capital Association to kickstart our Deal Rooms platform and Design Without Borders to provide guidance on how best to make our master classes and other sessions impactful. I would like to thank the organizing team, consisting of our members. We have Refactory, who's holding the chairmanship this year. Uganda Innovation Week is a platform. Even you can become a chairman if you want. Yeah, we can have MOOBs as the holding the chairmanship. But they've been supported by Social Innovation Academy, Start Hub Africa, Tech Buzz Hub, Makere Innovation and Incubation Center, Outbox, Women in Technology Uganda, iVenture Africa, and Circular Design Hub. I would also want to recognize the members of Startup Uganda, that include Circular Design Hub, Hive Collab, Innovation Village, Women in Technology Uganda, Refactory, Outbox, Makere Innovation and Incubation Center, Tech Buzz Hub, Social NFT Consult, Mkazpreneur, Shona, Finding XY, Start Hub Africa, Instant Rising, and Response Innovation Lab. So with that, I hope you find the next 3 days very impactful. Please feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help you learn as much as possible about the opportunities that you can tap. Dr. Amina Zawede to give us opening remarks. Let's clap for her, please.
Good afternoon to you all. The chair innovation week or startup. You haven't given people food. Oh, I'm standing between them and lunch. Good afternoon to you all. You know, innovators are supposed to be vibrant. That is my assumption. Well, I can see we have representatives from government. We have the principal, Uganda Institute of ICT, the team lead of the Innovation Hub, the innovation community chaired by the preceding speaker that we had here, Zulu, and all you young people in this room, people from academia, the innovators themselves, private sector. It's a pleasure for me to be attending the start of this Innovation Week. I believe a number of discussions have been held this morning, and part of these discussions I know have been a testimony as to how government is supporting the innovators. You know, for a long time, innovators have been crying out and saying, government yetuyambe. But today, I think during Mr. Antege's discussion, he was able to show what government is putting in place to show that we have not forgotten about the innovators, but we have so many things planned for you. And we are here to give you the leadership and to give you an environment that is able to support innovation to thrive in this country. So the theme, adapt or be left behind, is something that is trending these days. You know, they say if change has come and you cannot cope with the change, then you'll be thrown out or you'll be left behind. So anybody who is not thinking in that kind of space, especially the young people, I also have some young people at my home, my young boys who I tell, you know, if you don't change with the changing times, you're in trouble. So it is something that we have to keep on reminding our young people to do. So our theme that also is extended by saying opportunities for the Ugandan entrepreneur in the digital economy is in tandem with the recently launched National Digital Transformation Roadmap that has been, broken down this morning. But for purposes of emphasis, I will speak the pillars that this roadmap points out so that we see where we belong and how we fit in. What is the role of government? What is the role of the private sector? So we have 5 pillars. Building digital infrastructure and connectivity is the first thing. Of course, this is highly the responsibility of government. For example, if we are to use roads in this country, if government had not come out to build the roads, then people would not be able to move from one place to the other. So our responsibility as government is to ensure there is connectivity, is to ensure that in all corners of this country we have connectivity, and that is what we are doing at the moment. I am sure that currently we have about 50% of this country connected, and in the next 5 years we expect to be at about 70%. I know you will start telling me, but the prices are still high. We are also working on that as well. We also have to ensure that, prices of devices come down, of computers, of smartphones, because this is the only way you can be able to innovate. Then the other pillar, promoting digital services, is for all of us, government, private sector, innovators. We have to bring we have to bring solutions online in order to promote so many things. Promote efficiency, effectiveness, transparency, planning, and also it is an avenue to create revenue, as if you take services that generate revenue online. Then we have to boost cybersecurity. That is an area of emphasis as well. Cybersecurity, data protection, and privacy. As we do build these systems, as we do take services online, we have to ensure that they are secure. We don't want to go into, fear mode of going digital. As we are saying, adapt or be left behind. We don't want those who jumped onto. Remember, there is this story of Noah's Ark in the Bible. It's also in the Quran, I believe. Non-believers, please jump on this boat. And then those who are not believing stayed behind, and well, they died away. But now we don't want to say we are going digital, and because we have not created a safe environment, those who lag behind start laughing at us. So we are making sure that cybersecurity is key, creating awareness, also building capacity in this area. Then enhancing digital skills. Yes, we know that there is need for us to have digital literacy. The same way in the ordinary literacy where we had people having to learn to speak English and to count numeracy is also now the game that we have for the digital world. Everyone has to be able to navigate any application that is taken online. They have to be able to use and utilize these applications. Today, we have some people using phones for only calling and receiving, but the phone can do so many, so many things. So if you learn how to do it, then, or to use it, then you will become a better user of the system. So digital skilling is a big thing, and that is one of the reasons you're seated here today for the next 2 days, for you to get some additional skills or to enhance some of the skills you already have. This is a responsibility for all of us. It's a responsibility for you, for me, for government, for private sector, for academia, for the innovation ecosystem, for development partners. All of us have to go on this journey of ensuring that everybody gets skilled. So you can also make a difference. You can sit and teach some 1, 2, 3 people on how to use some of these applications or devices, including the very young people, because it has to start from the bottom of the chain. From as low as, kindergarten, people have to know how to go around these devices. And of course, last but not least, or saving the best for last, is innovation and entrepreneurship. That is an area of focus and emphasis. The Startup Association Uganda had already, or has embarked on that and has gone into trying to ensure that we have an enabling environment, the right laws and regulations that support startups. As government, we have also engaged with different development partners. We want to bring on board angel investors. We want to bring on board, venture capital investment, and so many investments. I think sometime about 2 years ago, we were in this room launching and branding Uganda as a destination for ICT investment. And the brand for Uganda is that it's the innovation powerhouse for Africa. So you all have to prove that you're contributing or you're part of this innovation powerhouse. As we go and promote our innovations, because today when you open up your laptop, it has Windows, operating system. That is an application or software. But everyone in the world that is using Windows-based, systems or Android is using this. So your innovation can also be used, globally. I don't know whether you young people use Skype, but in our days, Skype was a big thing. Today, I think you have, WhatsApp and so many others. But Skype was a big thing, but it started as a small innovation in Estonia and grew big. You know about Bolt. It also started as a small innovation, but it's now, minting money across the world for those of you who have traveled and been able to use Bolt, which is the equivalent of Uber. Now, in Uganda, we have Safe Border. It is also a big thing. This Safe Border can go and, be used in all countries that are using borders. So let us not look down upon the thoughts and ideas that we have, but use such platforms to be able to grow them. So the pillars of the digital transformation roadmap were identified not by the Ministry of ICT and national guidance on its own, but we did it in collaboration with various stakeholders. It was a rigorous process back and forth. It involved innovators, it involved academia, development partners, government representation, as well as the private sector. So you find that today, private sector foundation plays a big role in supporting all these pillars. The development partners do so. I think one of the reasons that I have come late is that we had a meeting early this morning where we were discussing how all these stakeholders can come together to support the innovators, to support digital transformation in this country. All of us need some level of funding to kick us off as innovators. There's some funding in government, in various places, in Ministry of ICT, in Ministry of Science and Technology, in so many others, and then in the private sector, the same thing. Development partners, the same thing. We are saying, let us harmonize all this funding and put it in one place so that we benefit, or all innovators get to benefit in one way or the other. And the reason we want to do this, or the reason why we want to harmonize digital transformation across the pillars that I have mentioned, is that we know how important the ICT sector is. The president has over and over again talked about the priorities of government that include commercialized agriculture, services. ICT is one of them. And it is because there is a lot of potential in the ICT sector. It is, first of all, one of the fastest growing sectors in Uganda that is being contributed to the biggest part of our population, the young people. You're just a fraction, a very small fraction or a drop of 30 million people that we have over below the age of 30 years old. And this sector, as at 2021-2022, contributed over $1 billion to our GDP, or gross revenue of the country. The sector contributes about, and that translates to about 9.1% that is contributed. But I am sure if we streamline these numbers, our contribution will even be bigger. For countries that have streamlined ICT and collected information about them, there is a lot of revenue generated by this sector and a lot of earnings in this area. So we should not downplay its importance. I have spoken to the need for us to extend connectivity. Today, we have internet subscriptions, which currently stand at about 24% of this country. Internet penetration of 55%. I think I told you that we are now connected to over 50% of the country. And we have mobile phone subscriptions of 31.26 million people. And of these 31.2, a third, that is about 10.9 million, have smartphones. Now we want all these other 20 million to also get smartphones, because you can't do business with this cartouche. You can only do too little with it. And for you all innovators, I don't think you're building any system or solution to be used on a cartouche phone. So we have a big job and role to play, both as government, private sector, and yourselves, to ensure that the uptake of services is upheld. The Uganda Innovation Week contributes to our commitment as government to harness the transformative power of innovation in propelling Uganda towards a more connected, inclusive, and technologically advanced Uganda. In the rapidly evolving landscape of the global digital economy, Uganda continues to position herself as a dynamic player, showcasing remarkable strides in harnessing technology to drive economic growth and innovation. As the digital revolution sweeps across industries worldwide, Uganda is keenly positioning itself to leverage transformative power of digital technologies. Some of these technologies, by the way, we have consumed as government. Yesterday, I attended a launch for Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Ministry of Trade. I'll stop there. I've forgotten the other end. But yes, Ministry of Trade was launching the utilization of an electronic document records management system. I think all of you, when you talk about records and government, the picture you paint is stacks of files that don't even have white paper, but it's turning brown. That is a kind of image that we get, but we are changing that. Currently, when you walk into my ministry, you will see less of paper. We are moving towards completely paperless because we are using that system as well. But the whole of government is moving. The Ministry of Public Service is using the system. Now Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Finance is taking it on. And the entire government is going to digitize. Why are we doing that? Of course, we want to look smart in appearance, but also be efficient in managing people's documents. We talked about data protection. You know how many documents these days are leaking like no man's business, and you cannot track where did the leak start, or documents are getting lost, or there's slow response and you don't know where things are stuck. but with these kind of things that we are bringing on board, developed by our own Ugandans. You, the innovators, are the ones doing these things. You can do registration of, I'm sure some of you, if you have a startup, you have registered your business, and you have done it online. And you have done it through a system that has been developed by innovators still, Ugandans. So we believe in the solutions that you're coming up with. And we believe that they will transform this country. That is why we are supporting innovators. Actually, PPDA, the Public Procurement and Disposal Agency of Uganda, has put a waiver on procurement of products developed by innovators. Because you know, when you go through the procurement process of this country, there are so many requirements that can stop you from winning, a bid or going through or being considered for you to provide a service for this country. But for innovators, waivers have been put in place. So this government is supporting you, the innovators. All we want you to do is to also play your part and give us good quality products. And I'm saying good quality products because, it takes a long, all of you have been in a relationship. At least that is what you can relate with. You cannot, if you're in a relationship, a good relationship is one where partners trust each other. And it takes time to build this trust. So the day you break that trust, it becomes a problem. So if we have built the trust of accepting your products, and we're saying, no, we are buying Uganda to build Uganda. Now there is another slogan, we are buying Africa to build Africa. Please don't disappoint us with poor quality products. And that is why we have, events like this, the Innovation Week, to showcase who has done what and to learn new skills that will help you improve yourselves. So the sub-themes for the Uganda Innovation Week this year are catalysts towards whatever I have mentioned. By the end of this event, the hope is that entrepreneurs have been able to understand and access the opportunities that are waiting for them in the public and private sectors, and that medium SMEs that are yet to join the digital economy are able to receive guidance as to how they can effectively integrate digital technologies into their businesses. I keep on telling people that are starting any initiative, especially in government, but it should be even for your businesses. For whatever initiative you're starting up, let it be digital by default. Let it be, don't start by doing analog things if you're starting an initiative. Think about how can I digitize this from end to end. Otherwise, if you start off on the note of being on the old, in the old way of doing things, then we can never move. So Uganda has long been a hub of diverse talent and ideas. We always pause of the talent that we have in Uganda. We also pause of the fact that we are educated in terms of literacy. We speak good English. We know how to count. We know how to communicate. But Uganda is also a hospitable country, so we know how to relate with people. In the digital world, we are not working with Uganda alone, but we are, crossing the borders and working with various jurisdictions. So we are supposed to be able to adapt across the board, not only technology-wise, but socially as well in terms of people relations. So Uganda is a platform to showcase the incredible strides we have made in the realms of technology, entrepreneurship, and digital transformation. In the face of the global challenges and opportunities that we are faced with, or that exist, the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance remains steadfast in its dedication to fostering an innovation ecosystem that empowers individuals, businesses, and communities alike. That is why we have this facility. Government of Uganda put up the National Innovation Hub to support innovators. So on the tick of, in the box of infrastructure and connectivity, we have ticked an innovation hub for you people. You come here, there is internet. I hope all of you are accessing Wi-Fi. If you're not, then I'll fire my people. Because the Innovation Hub is supposed to give you these resources when you're here. So I encourage each one of you to actively engage in the diverse array of activities, discussions, and showcases that will be unfolding over this Innovation Week and the days that are coming. Let us use this platform to not only celebrate our achievements, but also to inspire and be inspired to connect and collaborate and to collectively chart a course towards a brighter and more innovative future for our beloved nation. As we are doing all this, Uganda has a vision, a Digital Uganda Vision 2040. I don't know how many of you have read it, but Uganda has a vision, and the vision that we have is supposed to help us achieve and ensure that we create, among others, employment opportunities for you young people. And these are the various forums and agendas that we have to do this. We are sure that if you grow your products, you'll be able to employ more people in your companies or your startups, and you'll also be able to generate revenue for yourselves. So as I wind up, once again, I extend my sincere appreciation to all of you, the participants, the partners that we have for organizing this event, and stakeholders who have contributed to the realization of this event. I will give a special thanks to Startup Uganda for coordinating this. These are, of course, some of the initiatives that government cannot do alone, but we have to do together with you. The members of Startup Uganda, the Executive Committee, and the Uganda Innovation Week Organizing Committee, thank you for the job. Well done so far. The start is good, and I'm sure the end will be the best. To the National ICT Innovation Hub, thank you for availing the space that is government. We thank ourselves. Please clap for us. We have availed this space, and to all the contributing partners that have worked to ensure this event comes to fruition. I cannot forget the development partners, of course, because I know they've also played a tremendous role in this. So I commend Startup again for achieving the strides that you have registered since your inception in 2019. Your efforts are yielding great results, like you can see. We are now formalizing these engagements. We are going to go international, I am sure. I don't know whether you have part of this event aired online or virtually. So we have so many people who are passionate about the discussion that we're having today. May Uganda Innovation Week be a resounding success, leaving an incredible mark on our innovation landscape and ushering in a new era of progress for our nation. It's coming as the year is winding down, so it is kind of like a Christmas party for us and a Christmas gift for you people for receiving the skills that you will get. So I thank you, and let the innovation festivities begin for God and my country.
Can I bully you to stay here? And just really quickly before the other people join our really powerhouse of women, please take a really nice photo because we both look really nice. Just really quickly, I want to call up our partners, Exco for Startup Uganda, because you have a grand opportunity to take this photo. But it also shows collaboration. As we keep talking about collaboration, may we have photo evidence that we're actually collaborating with government. And I'm one of the few converts that's learning that I need government as private sector. So the Exco for Startup Uganda, the lead for the UIW committee, and our partners in the house. If you're here, please quickly come up Otherwise, I'll take the spotlight again because I don't mind smiling. And the rest of you can smile on our behalf. We'll make sure that we tag you.
On the ones and twos is DJ Fizz.
All right, thank you so, so much. Please, a round of applause for our PS. Yes, and I will definitely talk to her about a discount for this place, but we're happy to have such facilities. And I like the ambitious journey of connecting up to 90% of households in Uganda with internet. My hub, PS, is just next door on 5th Street, and I would like a boost of internet from this innovation hub to mine, alongside all the surrounding homes. Yeah, so thank you very much. And again, we really hope that this is not just talk. And I hope that as innovators, you don't just listen to us speaking gibberish. And I hope that you see how this translates in some practical steps, even if it means that you then start to work with the Innovation Hub because you need physical space. So I hope you have some really some takeaways. I've heard that there's a procurement arm of government, and thanks to NITA, our sponsor, we have internet, so quickly go online and see what it takes to get a deal with the government. But make sure, again, you're not embarrassing us. So just really quickly as we wrap up, we're gonna learn from people who have actually walked this talk. So the entrepreneurs that have succeeded in this journey have a spotlight moment. But as they come, I want to highlight, you saw a really cool van when you walked in. Hopefully you took a selfie with it. But beyond that, in partnership with CAS for Innovation and the Media Hub, it's a van that's here to tell our stories on wheels. So there's an actual studio in the van. I hope you pass by and tell your story. Because you could be a juice seller. And you are thinking, these guys have talked about digitalization. Digitalization is not an app. It's using the infrastructure of technology to boost your business. So go and tell us about your juice business in that van and actually use the infrastructure we're providing to reach other people, okay? So I'm just going to quickly call the next panel led by UNCDF. If you could come to the stage so I stop blabbering, because I'm really out of English at the moment. And you are the people standing between us and lunchtime. I know that you're going to give us some really practical nuggets here that will be relevant for the entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The good news is that I am also hungry, so I will not really take up a lot of your time. For the entrepreneurship spotlight today, we are going to hear from one of the most known companies. I hope he's around here. Yeah. I'll invite to the stage Mr. Gerald Otim, who is a techpreneur and founder of a Ugandan leading fintech, and Cibuco operates a proprietary microfinance platform specially developed for Africa's credit unions, that is SACCOs, savings groups, and has an ambitious target to increase financial inclusion by scaling rural microfinance infrastructure and digital financial services to millions of customers in sub-Saharan Africa. Wow, allow me to sit because this is going to be like a conversation between me and him, and you can listen in. Okay, welcome. Wow, that is a very interesting bio and very ambitious target of millions of customers in sub-Saharan Africa. So to start us off, here in Uganda Innovation Week, like it has been introduced, please give us a brief description of yourself and basically how you started your journey as an entrepreneur. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I know that we are standing in between you and lunch, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. My name is Gerald Otim. There isn't really a lot of exciting things about me personally, other than the fact that I'm an ardent Arsenal fan, and that I listen to rap music, and lately I have a particular liking for a local rap artist from Teso called Sparrow. That's probably the only exciting things for now. But as an entrepreneur, I founded Nsibuko 2014, so a 9-year-old business. We've been around for quite a while, so I hope that some of my experiences will be quite relevant for some of you guys here.
Yeah. To recap, I'm sorry, I did not introduce myself because I was threatened with lunch, and I know Ugandans and their food. My name is Annette Nantumbwe, and I work with UNCDF as a digital agriculture analyst. You threatened me. Okay. Basically, just as part of the moment, what was going through your mind as you started Nsibuko?
Well, there are really two things that led me to starting Nsibuko. The first one is my childhood upbringing. That's probably where my passion for the work that I currently do with savings groups and circles, that's really where it started. But before I started Nsibuko, I also worked with an organization that taught entrepreneurship. So I somehow decided that I wanted to live up to the principles and values that I used to teach while teaching entrepreneurship. That's really how it all started. So then eventually we also found soft landing when we learned about Outbox, which is really where we started. And Richard and his team were extremely helpful. So overall, I think that for me, as an entrepreneur, I had some skills to start with, which I developed while teaching entrepreneurship. Then I had a strong passion for something I could hold on to. And then I also found soft landing, which I think are essential things for any young person that desires to start an enterprise.
Thank you. So the Outbox, is that what you would consider as your breakthrough moment for Nsibuko?
No, not to say that Outbox wasn't helpful, extremely helpful. But I think for me the breakthrough moment was when we received our first check from an actual paying customer. That was in 2017. That, I think, for every entrepreneur, that's truly a memorable moment and truly an exciting one. And the way it actually happened when we first acquired this customer, so we provided then a software as a service platform, which is that people pay a fee to use the platform. And when I initially negotiated this contract, I went in and, it's a first customer, there's a lot of anxiety, you're not really sure how to price, and you also want to be careful not to overprice because the customer might run away. So I was lost in there, and I went in here, and clearly the customer had an advantage over me. And so we negotiated, and they were paying me 50 shillings per user. Users are members of circles. This was a 10,000 member circle. So they're huge. So 50 shillings is really what they were willing to pay. So I came back truly excited. Around that time, we were also negotiating our first seed investment. And, we went into this conversation with this investor, and we showed our contract, and he looked at it and he said, "Are you guys joking? There's no way you're going to run a business charging 50 shillings. So you will have to go back to the customer and tell them they will pay you 500 shillings or you're walking away." And I said, "No, you're kidding. That won't happen." And say, "Yeah, if it won't happen, then I'm not investing." And so I went back to the customer and said exactly that. I said, "Listen, we've worked out the numbers. 50 shillings won't cut it. It's 500 or nothing." And so they said, "Sorry, we'll see you again, hopefully in the future." So I walked away, and a week later they called me and we signed a contract for 500 shillings per customer. So that was for me the breakthrough moment.
Perfect. That is amazing. 50 to 500, that's more than 1,000%. Is that right? That is a lot. Right. Basically, we are talking about partnerships, effective partnerships, especially for startups. We've heard about collaborations and all these kind of things. What would you consider, could you share like an example of a high-profile partnership that you've had with Nsibuko that has had a significant impact on your business?
Yeah, we've had a lot of partners, in all kinds of partners, literally. We partner with international development organizations like UNCDF, who we've worked with for about 3-4 years now. And we work with telecom companies, MTN, Airtel, who we have a very good and strong relationship with. But I think for me, the high-profile partnership that I will probably talk about here is the partnership that we got into early this year with the Uganda Development Bank. So 2 years ago, we decided that for our savings groups, we wanted to, beyond digitization, we realized that lots of the savings groups that we're working with were still undercapitalized. They didn't have access to capital. And we tried multiple times to get banks to finance them, and that wasn't working out. So we decided we'd go into the lending business ourselves. We'd do that as an embedded loan on the platform directly. So we acquired a lending license, a Tier 4 lending license last year. And around that time, we started talking. Actually, before that, we had started talking to Uganda Development Bank with the help of UNCDF to try to get them to put in capital for our initial lending pilot. And that conversation took forever. And eventually, early this year, we signed that contract with them. And they gave us an initial 500 million for a pilot that has worked out really well. I think we are Uganda Development Bank's first fintech partner. They had never done this before. It's also learning for them. We hope that we'll do it right so that it opens doors for a lot of the other fintechs. But I would say that's probably the highest profile partnership we have got ourselves into.
Amazing. This is like basically a segue. Basically, UDB is like a tall order for many of our innovators here. So with the ones that started, what advice would you give to the innovators that we have here to be able to secure such partnerships? Maybe not UDB at the start, but UNCDF and all these other development partners that we have in the room.
So I prepared for this question. And I took some bullet points. So kindly allow me use these bullet points to guide this conversation, because I want to make sure I don't leave out anything. So there are a couple of things, and I'll try to be as brief as possible. But the first one is relationships. Partnerships is all about relationships. Relationships is about people. So in each of the organizations or companies that you want to partner with, you have to realize that there are people behind them. And it's very important that you always find an evangelist for you within those organizations. There has to be someone that gets what you're trying to do, understands your vision, and, can advocate for you internally. And it's really important that you build those relationships. It's important that you leverage the people relationships to get those partnerships on board. And for Nsibuko, that's what we do really well. The other thing is presence. You need to be present in the spaces and areas where these organizations are. You need to really understand where do they hang out. And hang out, I don't mean bars or places like that, but conferences, events like this. Where do they hang out? Which kinds of people are they hanging out with? And how can you be present in those places? In fact, it's very important that you don't just appear and be part of the audience, but actually ask for an opportunity to be put on the spotlight. Ask for opportunities to speak on the panel. Ask for opportunities to be interviewed so that you appear in the video and people get to hear about you and learn about you. These are extremely important things. And a lot of times, we as entrepreneurs, we come into places like this and we want to play small. We stay somewhere in the audience. No one ever notices you. So for Nsibuko, that's what we do. we are always present. You see us literally everywhere. We're on TV, we are at conferences, we are on panels like this. This is what we do, and it's extremely important. And it's something that I encourage you guys to do as well. Be seen. That's it, really. And then be authentic. The thing about partnerships is that if you're not disciplined, it's very easy for you to get deviated from what your actual purpose or mission is. And the more you do that, the more partners start to notice. They realize, these people are always hopping from one thing to another. They're always chasing the money. UNCDF puts up a call for proposals asking for people that want to digitize SMEs. You're there. The next time they want a platform to digitize farmers, you're there. The next time they want an education platform, you're there. And that's a problem. You have to be authentic. You have to be true to your purpose, to your mission. Stick to what you actually set out to do. We started 9 years ago digitizing circles and savings groups. We are still doing that. We're just doing it better now. And it's what I encourage you to do, because the more you do that, the more you become an authority in that space, the more people notice you, the more they get to know you, the more you build credibility, and that's how you really crowd in partners. And that is something that I encourage that you do. Then have some associations. So for example, UDB. I mentioned earlier that we signed a partnership with UDB early this year. But there were people that were helping out in the background. UNCDF, FAO, and so many other partners that were, supporting in the process. And these are the associations that I encourage you to build. It's really important that you align yourself with other organizations, other partners, other people that can speak for you. We wouldn't have closed that deal if we didn't have the right associations. And it's something that I encourage you guys to do as often. And then the final one is proof of concept. So one thing that I didn't mention again about the UDB partnership is that before they actually gave us money, I talked to some of my shareholders and mobilized resources internally, and we did a proof of concept. For 6 months, we lent our own money and used that to prove the concept, to prove that it's actually possible to provide digital loans to savings groups. We did that for 6 months and maintained our portfolio at risk, for those of you that understand that language, at 0%, which really means that our repayments digitally, we're appraising digitally, disbursing digitally, collecting digitally, all our repayments were 100% on time. And we used that proof of concept to build the evidence that the partner needed, that we can actually get into a strategic lending partnership with them. And that is something that I encourage you to do. No matter how small it is, build some kind of proof. People need to see that the things you claim you can actually do with your solution, you can do them. And if you can do them even with little resources, just try to do it, no matter how small it is. So those are some of the tips that I would provide.
Wow, thank you so much. Does everybody here understand portfolio at risk? Yeah, portfolio at risk is a very important thing in the lending world. Anyway, of course, we know that entrepreneurship journey is not a straight path. I mean, there are hills, there are valleys, there are challenges, there are hurdles. I would like you to speak about challenges and hurdles, but relating to a particular partnership, if you can, that did not work out, and the lessons maybe that you learned from that.
Yeah, so in 2020, we got into a partnership with one of the commercial banks. It's a Tier 4 bank. It's a very popular bank. And we got into this partnership. We signed a contract for $200,000. I won't mention the name of the financial institution. And the idea was really that we would integrate our platform with their platform so that savings groups can open bank accounts right on the platform and they can transact. And we spent 18 months doing the integration and building a lot of things, and it never went to market. And it was painful because I'd pitched this to my shareholders. I'd built a case for why it's important that we invest time and resources into it, so it made me look bad. But also, there was a burnout. We had put in so much time into the whole thing, and it all just came down crashing. And I think for me, the main lesson there was that you're better off spending 80% of the time. And I'll tell you why this failed. It really failed to go to market because we hadn't figured out a lot of things. We didn't have a go-to-market strategy. We didn't know how to price. We didn't know how to promote. We really did not understand how we take this to market and how to get people to use it. So the lesson there is that you're better off spending 80% of your time planning and 20% building. Because I think as tech companies, especially, I'll talk for tech companies. I know there are non-tech companies here as well, but this is probably relevant for you as well. But from the perspective of the tech company, we are always building. We spend so much time building stuff and very little time how we are going to take that stuff to market. And then we start figuring out how to take it to market when the product is ready. And then you learn later on that, there's a lot of things you probably left out. There's a lot of oversights. Maybe it just wasn't, perfect fit for the market. You spend too much time, too much resources. And so things don't work out and you're out of business. So I encourage that, you are better off spending 20% of the time actually building and then spend the other 80% planning.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? One or two before I proceed with the final one for me? Yes, I don't know who's going to help me with the microphone. Can you try to project? Oh, there's a microphone here. So maybe someone can help me. He's over there. It's not on.
Thank you so much. I wish to ask Mr. Nsibuko on how I've seen him consistent in the market for a very long time. Congratulations on you being consistent. I just wanted to know the procedure for acquiring a lending license. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. Abdul Selias is my name. I am the General Secretary for Zirowe Kalagala Youth Cooperative. We are youth-led, youth-focused, located in Ruero. We do a number of services with young people. We enable access to finance, tractor services. We manage a milling business, and we also do extension to young people. My question is, I've had Nsibuko not for the first time, but I'm looking at how best does Nsibuko integrate and relatively or closely create a relationship